It was a report intended to tackle concerns that millions around the country have to deal with. But what do those who experience racism on a regular basis actually think of it? Today we gathered leading figures from the employment, criminal justice, education and healthcare sectors to get their thoughts on the report's findings.
The government is clearly in denial about the persisting, insidious effect of racism and the fact that it actually exists.
I do feel, though, that it kind of seeks to kind of almost invalidate the experiences of countless people of colour. I don't see how you can possibly say that race is a lesser issue than it is.
One of the things that's been highlighted is this idea that historic racism creates a deep mistrust within communities, and that serves as a barrier that slows down or prevents social progression. Do you think that's fair?
Well, distrust comes from the experience of people. And I represent doctors, and that all the evidence has shown over the decades that doctors from ethnic minority backgrounds have been severely disadvantaged in our health service.
Historic racism is what has led to systems and structures that are built to allow our white colleagues to advance further than the ethnic minority colleagues. What do we call that? Systemic racism. What is that? Institutional racism.
One of the recommendations is that we do away with unconscious bias training. How would that work in your specific industries?
The recommendation to get rid of it is fine as long as we have something to replace it with.
I think it's very simplistic to say that all training is good or bad, or it has value. What's really important is to recognise there's a real cultural problem.
There's a specific quote that I want to read you all. It's in the report. There's a new story about the Caribbean experience, which speaks to the slave period not only being about profit and suffering, but how culturally African people transformed themselves into remodelled African and Britons. What do you all make of that?
I consider that comment to be deeply offensive. How can people transform themselves?
It's almost as though they're trying to put a positive spin on slavery.
I think that quote in itself represents how this report is very convoluted and unaware of its own assessment.
This debate is far from settled, and for this group, one thing is clear. They feel their concerns certainly haven't been addressed.